To talk more about this important cultural story in Israel is Orit Suletzenu. Orit is the executive director of the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel and culture contributor Karmit Levite. Karmit, I'm going to start with you because Zohar Argov, legend here in Israel, not so well known across the world in the U.S., but this issue of separating the man from the music, we can confront this issue also, let's say, with R. Kelly right now, or Michael Jackson.
Or Woody Allen.
Oh, Woody Allen.
Yes.
Can you do that? How do you do that?
How do you separate the art from the artist is what you're saying. You know, it's those cities that squash the idea of calling their streets and centers after Zohar Argov. Think about when you name Rapist, the flower in my garden, one of the most famous of his songs. When you call it the name of the song, you immediately feel the song. When you call it the name of the artist, you immediately think of the artist. So I think that separation is super, super important. And not to take away from what he brought to the world. And when I say he, Zohar Argov, it's also the songwriters around him that together brought Mizrahi music to a mainstream media, which was something absolutely impossible before him.
We should note that he was a real trailblazer. I mean, as a Mizrahi, as a cultural icon.
Well,
what made him so
Well, here's the thing, like he was born in a housing project where crime and drugs were prevalent. He is the symbol of sort of the phoenix rising out of the ashes, the first one to actually make way and give a voice to all the Mizrahis and those who were living in these kinds of neighborhoods. And that was the first time that they saw a success and could actually look up to someone and have hope in their life. And until then, Mizrahi music was labeled negatively, and the mainstream music was basically Ashkenazi. So for Zohar Argov to make it, he had to somehow convince the Ashkenazis that this music is worth listening to.
And it's not that he was so popular in the 80s. Even now, very much so. This guy is everywhere.
After he passed away, and when you say he killed himself, there are even sort of rumors about that. But we won't get into that. Yeah, there's a disputed. But now, after he's passed away, like before he passed away, only Mizrahi people recognized him. Like he would go before, you know, main social networks, etc. He would go to the main sort of shuk, and he would sell his cassette. He's called a cassette singer. And he was loved by thousands and millions, thousands of Mizrahi people. Ashkenazis would not even recognize him if he walked past by them. And after he passed away, his songs were remade, there were movies made about him, documentaries, and his fame sort of like, you know, any artist who passes away, suddenly his art becomes very big. But I think what really made his music so resonant to Ashkenazis as well as the Mizrahi was that 1982 was a really great time for the song that made him through the mainstream media for it to happen, because Israel was sort of still a young country, started trying to get used to a new language, to get its own identity. By 1982, there was more confidence, and the songs and the lyrics of the songs started to shuffle around and to take more shapes. And so he had like this specific song, Rapist Begani, that made that transfer, that conquered the Ashkenazis, had flamenco sounds in the trumpets, and all these elements, they were never in Mizrahi songs before, and it made it so accessible to everyone.
Orit, I want to get your take here. I mean, what are your thoughts on naming a town square after Argov? What message does it send?
I think this is really, really bad. I think that disregarding what Zohar Argov did, disregarding the fact that he was a convicted rapist and was accused of another sexual attack, and forgetting it and minimalizing what he did after, you know, years have already passed since his death, and suddenly giving him this kind of accreditation is a very, very bad message, because it's like, you know, he did something, okay, pay the price, and we can return to life as if nothing happened. One of the big battles of every woman and every man who wants to fight sexual violence is to name and blame the people who do this kind of thing, and not minimalize it, not forget it, and I'm really I'm really surprised how the mayor could disregard what happened. We're in the post-Me Too period. You know, sexual violence is recognized one of the biggest pandemics Corona, I hope, will disappear. Sexual violence is a lot more complicated to make it disappear because there's no vaccine for that. But calling the name of a place in a city on a sexual offender is anti-vaccination, if you should say, and I think it's embarrassing. Shouldn't have happened, and I hope that the decision will change, and I hope that women activists and man activists will fight against that. This is really, really embarrassing.
Orit, thank you so much for being with us, the executive director of the Association of Rape Crisis Centers, with reaction on this decision to name the town square. Thank you so much, Orit. And Carmit, we should note this wasn't a unanimous decision. This was a major controversy in Ramleh. It split the city council. The mayor ultimately saying that Argov's legacy, for even now, for young Mizrahi underrepresented in society music, it's so important that we can still honor the legacy of his work while still acknowledging his crimes as a sexual predator and a drug abuser.
Yeah.
But the idea, it's such a controversial issue here.
Because it gives us, once you name it Zohar Argov, there's a sort of legitimacy to what he did in a way. And I think, well,
because it encompasses his life, and it says, you know, all in all, he's still worthy of the honor.
He's definitely worthy of the honor. Like, what he did is incomparable and incredible, and I'm all for the art. But again, we have to separate it from the artist. In this very case, as she said, when you have rape involved and violence against women involved, it gives a sort of legitimacy. And what message does that give?
And the idea here, again, this is a man who in many respects is kind of a demigod of Israel, one of the most legendary performers of all time here.
Absolutely, until today, and resonates onwards. And, you know, when he was found, these brothers, Reuveni brothers, when they found him, they just heard a couple of notes of his, and they knew he was going to be a star and how he's going to resonate. Until now, they have not found his equal.
A truly singular talent here in Israeli culture. Carmit, thank you so much for your analysis and insight. Great to have you on this story.
It is good to be here.